Imagine, if you will, a moment where you're completely alone, no phones, no conversations, just you left to yourself. Now, for some, this idea may seem daunting. But what if instead of seeing solitude as a void, we looked at it as a chance to meet someone we often ignore? Ourselves. In the absence of social roles, expectations, or the need to respond to others, we find the freedom to observe, truly observe, who we are without filters. This isn't to say that solitude is always easy. Often the first taste of real solitude can be unsettling. It forces us to confront parts of ourselves we may have kept hidden under layers of social niceties or responsibilities. There's nowhere to hide in silence. It's just you and whatever rises up from within. But here's the beauty of it: solitude provides a stage for those hidden thoughts, those overlooked insights, to step forward, to be acknowledged, to be understood. In the quiet, we become aware of our own patterns, the thoughts that repeat, the emotions that linger. We might notice habits we've carried unconsciously, or even beliefs that we've accepted simply because they were convenient in the company of others. And slowly, in this state of openness, we begin to see the possibility of shedding these old skins. Without anyone else around, there's no need to impress, no need to conform. We are granted the permission to just be. The magic of solitude is that it acts as a mirror. You begin to see your true self reflecting back, raw and unedited. You are no longer reacting to others, but rather observing your own responses to the world. You see what truly brings you peace and what ignites that spark of joy without any outside influence. It's as if through solitude you're given the chance to tap into a frequency that's uniquely yours, a way to hear your own heartbeat, your own rhythm, separate from the noise of everyone else's. In this space we find clarity. Solitude lets us ask ourselves questions we rarely stop to consider in the rush of daily life. What are we chasing? What do we want? What kind of person do we aspire to be? And these aren't questions that others can answer for us, nor should they. These are questions only we can explore in those quiet moments. And that exploration becomes more profound the longer we stay with ourselves, letting the answers emerge naturally rather than forcing them. Think of it this way: solitude is like a doorway to the deeper self, a passage we rarely take. And yet behind that door we find a treasure trove of insights and understanding that have the power to transform how we view the world and ourselves in it. In solitude we get to know not just what we like or dislike, but the values that make us who we are. We begin to recognize the inner compass that guides us not based on social approval, but on something far more authentic and enduring. The irony, of course, is that while we often seek connection through others, the most profound connection is the one we cultivate within. When we come to know ourselves in solitude, we carry that understanding back into our interactions, enriching them, because we no longer look to others to fill a void or to validate us. Instead, we engage from a place of fullness, having come to terms with who we are. And in that fullness, we find that solitude is not loneliness, but a form of inner companionship. So, when you find yourself alone, try to see it as an invitation, a rare opportunity to delve into the depths of your own being. There's no need to rush or to seek distractions. Sit with yourself, listen, and you may just discover a side of yourself that you never knew existed. Because solitude, in its quiet and unassuming way, has a powerful gift to offer, the gift of self-discovery. And in that gift you may just find everything you've been searching for. Imagine a man with no friends, a man who perhaps walks alone, spends quiet evenings by himself, and seems an enigma to those around him. From the outside, it's easy to assume he's missing something, that his life is somehow lacking because he doesn't have the typical social circle. But maybe we're looking at it all wrong. What if, instead of seeing his solitude as emptiness, We viewed it as freedom from expectations, from social obligations, from the subtle pressures to fit into the molds that friends, family, and society might place upon us. When we are alone, truly alone, we're no longer performing for anyone. We can drop the masks we often wear and just be. In the absence of friends, there's a unique space that opens up, a space where we can hear our own thoughts without interference. This is where true self-reflection begins. Without the input or influence of others, we start to see our desires, our beliefs, our values, with a clarity that is often blurred by the noise of social interaction. It's not that friends are a burden. It's that friendships come with a natural set of responsibilities and unspoken contracts. There are expectations to communicate, to support, to share in each other's experiences. And while those are beautiful aspects of human connection, they can also distract us from exploring what's within. When we let go of the need to constantly connect, we allow ourselves the freedom to be, to breathe, to exist in our own essence. In this solitude, we can explore our own depths. We might discover passions we never knew we had, interests we were too busy to explore when we were caught up in the social world. With no one else around, we are free to be curious, to delve into the unknown parts of ourselves. It's a chance to wander through our inner landscapes without judgment, without comparison, without feeling the need to live up to anyone else's expectations. And maybe we realize that the company we keep with ourselves is enough. Perhaps in this solitude we find an inner richness that feels more fulfilling than the superficial connections we sometimes accept just to avoid being alone. In this way, solitude becomes empowering. It becomes a reminder that our worth isn't tied to how many people surround us or to the quality of their companionship. Instead, it's tied to our own self-acceptance, our own ability to find peace within ourselves. This peace is something rare and profound, and it can only be truly understood in the quiet moments we spend alone. It's not a life that requires validation from others, but one that is complete in itself. When you stop seeking approval, when you let go of the need to fit in, you find a strength within you that is unshakable. You begin to realize that with or without friends, you are enough. And this understanding, this self-assuredness, allows you to walk through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that you are whole as you are. So, if you find yourself walking alone, remember this isn't loneliness, it's liberation. In this solitude, you have the freedom to be your truest self, to grow without limitations, to find fulfillment in your own company. Because when you embrace being alone, you're never truly alone. You are with yourself, and that in itself is a beautiful thing. Consider the man who has no friends, and imagine what happens when he begins to walk the path of solitude. There's a particular power in not being tethered to anyone, in moving freely, without the weight of social expectations or the need to present a certain version of himself to fit in. He steps back from the external world. And as he does, he begins to discover something profound, a peace that is deeply rooted in his own being. When we spend time alone, we no longer feel the subtle pressure to be something for others. We don't have to mold ourselves to fit the roles others assign to us, and in that freedom we experience the joy of simply being. It's a feeling that can't be duplicated when we're constantly surrounded by people. Instead of striving to meet others' expectations, we start to notice what we actually want, who we truly are beneath the layers of identity that others have helped to build. And in that quiet, he begins to notice his mind, the constant chatter that fills it, the worries, the desires, the fears. Most of us go through life so enmeshed in our relationships that we rarely notice the endless stream of thoughts running in the background. But when we're alone, there's nothing to distract us, and we can observe those thoughts like passing clouds. We begin to see that they're not who we are, they're just patterns, stories we've picked up along the way. In solitude, the man learns to step back from them, to see them from a distance, and in doing so he experiences the clarity that comes from seeing the world and himself without judgment. He discovers that solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the absence of others, but solitude is the presence of self. When we enter this space intentionally, we learn that we are enough as we are, and we don't need anyone else's validation to feel complete. This understanding changes how we interact with the world. We stop needing approval, needing connection just for the sake of it. Instead, we become content with our own presence, fulfilled by the rich inner world we carry with us. This inner peace becomes an anchor, and it allows us to connect with others, if we choose, from a place of wholeness rather than need. We're not grasping for attention or validation, we're simply sharing the natural overflow of our being. And if we choose not to connect, we don't feel lesser for it. We're no longer defined by the company we keep, but by the relationship we cultivate with ourselves. In solitude, we meet ourselves in a way we can't when we're constantly distracted by others. We see our fears, our desires, our strengths, our weaknesses, and we make peace with them. It's a meeting that grounds us, that gives us strength. And as he learns to love his own company, he realizes something remarkable in this space of solitude. He is free. So if you find yourself alone, take it as an opportunity. Embrace it as a gift. Solitude offers a kind of freedom that can't be found in the company of others. It allows you to be your true self, with no compromises, no masks, and no illusions. And in that freedom, you'll discover a kind of peace that nothing and no one can take away. In solitude, something incredible begins to unfold. We become acutely aware of the patterns we've been carrying with us, the ones that have been ingrained in us over years of social interaction and conditioning. When we're constantly surrounded by others, these patterns operate on autopilot. We don't notice them, let alone question them. But alone we start to see them more clearly, like the dust that only becomes visible when sunlight pours into a room. These patterns are made up of beliefs and behaviors that have shaped who we think we are. Some of them are useful, protective even, but many are limiting small ideas about ourselves and the world that we've accepted as truths. They could be judgments, insecurities, or the need for approval. And in solitude, when there's no one else around to affirm or challenge these ideas, they start to rise to the surface, exposing themselves for what they really are: just stories. They're narratives we've been telling ourselves, perhaps for so long that we've forgotten they were even there. Now, here's the beauty of this solitude. We finally have a chance to observe these stories without the usual noise that surrounds us. We don't have to react to them or get entangled in them. Instead, we can watch them like a river flowing past, seeing each one as it rises and fades away. And in that space, we gain a sense of freedom from them. We're no longer slaves to our own conditioning, no longer trapped in the roles we've unconsciously accepted. This freedom is powerful, because once we see these stories for what they are, we can begin to let go of them. We don't need to cling to an identity that's based on old beliefs or outdated habits. We can start to shed the layers that don't feel true to us anymore, and in that shedding we come closer to our authentic selves. It's like stripping away a mask that we've been wearing for years without even realizing it was there. Being alone provides a sanctuary for this inner work. We're not distracted by the opinions of others, nor are we seeking validation from them. We don't feel the need to impress or conform because no one's watching. And in that absence of external influence, we get to decide who we really are. This process may feel uncomfortable at times. It's natural to feel exposed when we're face to face with our inner selves without the usual distractions. But it's in this raw, vulnerable space that real growth occurs. The beauty of this is that as we become more comfortable with who we truly are, we also become more comfortable in solitude. We start to enjoy our own company in a way we might never have thought possible. We stop seeing solitude as something to be avoided and begin to embrace it as a space of clarity and strength. And when we do decide to re-engage with others, we do so from a place of authenticity. We're no longer bound by the old patterns, the habitual roles, or the need for validation. So in this quiet, we find a kind of liberation. We step out of the stories that have been written for us and start writing our own. And maybe, just maybe, that's where true freedom begins. When we think about the need for connection, we often imagine it as a constant give and take, a kind of ongoing transaction with the people around us. We share pieces of ourselves, and we expect something in return: support, recognition, understanding. But what if instead we approached connection from a completely different angle? What if we viewed it not as something we need to chase or grasp at, but as something that arises naturally when we are at ease with ourselves? In solitude, we find a rare opportunity to break from the cycle of seeking validation and approval from others. When we're not around others to witness or judge us, the pressure lifts. We're left with only ourselves, and that can be both freeing and unsettling. In that space, we can start to see that the approval we've been seeking has always been within our control. It's not something anyone else can give us, not really, because even if they did, we'd have to accept it, wouldn't we? And to accept it, we have to already believe at some level that we are worthy. The question then is not how to get others to see us a certain way, but rather how to let go of the need for anyone else to see us at all. It's like removing a weight we didn't realize we were carrying. When we're no longer reaching out for others to confirm our worth, we find that our relationships with them can be lighter, easier. We're not grasping or clinging because we've stopped needing something specific from them. We're simply present with them, open to whatever may come without any demands or expectations. And ironically, this shift in perspective often leads to a deeper, more authentic connection. When we stop trying to extract something from our interactions with others, whether it's love, approval, or validation, our presence becomes a gift, not a request. Others can sense when we're not looking to take from them, when we're simply there, fully ourselves. And in that presence, of true connection becomes possible. It's a connection that's not based on roles or expectations, but on a shared experience of being. This is a subtle but powerful transformation. By learning to be alone, by finding comfort in our own company, we start to understand what it means to connect from a place of wholeness rather than need. And perhaps that's the greatest gift we can give, not only to ourselves, but to everyone we encounter. In the end, it's not about avoiding connection or isolating ourselves. It's about transforming the quality of our connections. When we're complete in ourselves, when we're no longer searching for others to fill the gaps, we find that the people we do connect with are those who resonate with our truest selves. And that is a connection worth having. So let's step back, find our center, and allow our connections to flow naturally without strain or force. After all, when we stop searching, we often find exactly what we need. Think about the pace we tend to live at, constantly rushing, moving from one thing to the next without much pause, always feeling like there's something else we need to achieve or somewhere else we need to be. This constant striving can make us believe that the best life is one that's packed full of activity, full of social gatherings, full of people who make us feel important. But is it possible that in this rush to fill our lives, we're actually filling it with distractions rather than with meaning? When we look a bit closer, we may realize that constantly filling our lives with others can be a subtle way of avoiding ourselves. We turn to others to escape, to avoid the quiet moments where we might have to confront something deeper. Alone, we can't hide from our own minds, our own thoughts. There's no one to entertain us, no one to affirm our stories, no one to fill the silence, and for some of us, that's a daunting prospect. It's so much easier, in a way, to be distracted by 1,000 different connections than to be fully present with ourselves. But it's precisely in those quiet moments that we begin to understand who we really are. Alone, we have the space to observe ourselves, to see the ways we react, the things we gravitate toward, and the things we avoid. This is where self-awareness blooms, where we can start to see the patterns that govern us, patterns that we often miss when we're caught up in the constant flow of social interactions. When we remove ourselves from the company of others, we stop playing roles. There's no need to be the funny one or the helpful one or any other role we think we need to play to be accepted. We can just be without any expectations or performances. Solitude gives us the rare opportunity to meet ourselves, and this meeting can be uncomfortable at times, there's no denying that. But discomfort is often where the most profound insights arise. It's where we start to ask the real questions: what do I truly want? What do I value? Who am I when no one else is watching? And once we've begun to answer these questions, once we've started to know ourselves, we find that we can approach relationships in a new way. We're no longer looking to others to fill a void, to be something that makes us feel complete. Instead, we approach relationships as whole people, not in need, but in harmony with ourselves. And this changes everything. Our connections become lighter, less burdened by expectations. They become joyful rather than something we grasp at for validation. So the real journey isn't out there with others, but within. By getting comfortable with who we are, by learning to sit in that silence without rushing to fill it, we open the door to a different kind of peace, a peace that doesn't rely on anyone else, a peace that is truly our own. Ultimately, solitude isn't about withdrawing from life, but about living more deeply. When we've learned to be alone, we can be with others from a place of true freedom. Because we're content within ourselves, there's nothing to chase, nothing to cling to. And in that space, real connection has room to grow. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is sharing, everyone's talking, filling the air with stories about their achievements, their struggles, their plans for the future. It can be compelling, right? There's an energy in that sharing, the sense that each person in speaking is establishing who they are in the eyes of everyone else. But consider what's really happening beneath that surface. There's a dependency forming a need to be recognized, understood, and validated by others. When we constantly share every detail of our personal lives, we can start to place our sense of self in the hands of those who listen. It becomes too easy to rely on their reactions, their opinions, and their interpretations to tell us who we are. We begin to seek approval, and without realizing it, we surrender part of ourselves to the audience. It's a strange kind of vulnerability, not the openness that lets us connect, but a vulnerability that risks our peace, our self-knowledge, and our freedom. You see, privacy is more than just keeping things to ourselves. It's a form of self-respect. When we hold parts of our lives close, we're saying, this is mine. We protect our experiences, our moments, and even our dreams from being diluted by others' judgments or misunderstandings. Think of it as protecting a young plant, still delicate from harsh elements. It's not about secrecy, it's about giving it a safe space to grow, undisturbed and unaffected by anything outside. When we choose to keep our personal lives personal, we're reclaiming our inner space. This space, untouched by others' views, becomes a sanctuary, a place where our thoughts and emotions are ours alone. In this quiet, we can process our experiences without interference, without the filters that other people's perspectives can create. We can reflect more deeply, see things more clearly, and most importantly, understand ourselves on our own terms. And when we do share, when we open up, it's a deliberate act, not a habit. We're no longer sharing for approval or validation instead. We share because we choose to, because we feel a genuine resonance with someone. This selective sharing becomes an act of freedom. It's not driven by a need to be understood, but by a desire to connect meaningfully. And this makes each connection more authentic, more precious. So by keeping parts of ourselves unspoken, we're not closing off, we're simply creating a space where we can live with true autonomy. This is where self-trust and resilience grow. We're not seeking anything outside to complete us, and we find we're whole and strong within ourselves. In a world that constantly pulls us to share, to be seen, to seek validation, remember that your most sacred self doesn't need an audience. That inner space is yours alone. Honor it, and you'll find strength and peace no one else can give you. There's an interesting paradox in life. The more we try to fill the voids within us by seeking external approval or sharing every detail of our lives, the emptier we may end up feeling. Why? Because the parts of us that yearn for real fulfillment can't be satisfied by the fleeting reactions of others. There are moments of connection, yes, but there are also moments that fade as quickly as they come, leaving us once again searching for that next conversation, that next reaction, that next bit of validation. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't share our lives or be open. It's natural to want to connect, to reach out, to feel like we're part of something larger than ourselves. But it's worth asking, when we feel that urge to disclose, what are we really looking for? Is it support, understanding, a sense of relief? Or are we hoping, perhaps unconsciously, that others will see us a certain way, maybe in a way we have difficulty seeing ourselves? You see, true inner peace, real confidence, doesn't come from others telling us we're on the right path or that our choices make sense. It comes from an alignment within, a deep-seated belief that we're living in integrity with ourselves. When we're rooted in that, we're no longer at the mercy of how others interpret our actions, because we're not looking for them to give us a sense of direction or worth. In this world, everyone's walking their own path, dealing with their own challenges and viewpoints, which means people often interpret our lives through their own lenses. And it's not their fault, it's simply how perception works. But if we rely too heavily on their interpretations, we risk losing sight of our own. We start doubting, second-guessing, bending to fit expectations that aren't ours. And over time, this can wear us down, drain us of that essential clarity we have when we're true to ourselves. Consider the freedom that comes from no longer feeling the need to explain your choices, to defend your lifestyle, or to justify your dreams. Imagine the liberation in standing firm in your path without seeking outside endorsement. When you live with kind of quiet certainty, you're no longer running to others for validation. Instead, you're running deeper into your own experience, learning from it, and letting it unfold naturally. You're experiencing life directly, without the filter of others' perceptions. It's not about isolation or withdrawal, it's about understanding that your life is your own masterpiece, shaped by your own hands. The fewer hands you give that brush to, the more authentic the painting becomes. You don't need a crowd around to tell you what color to use or what form to take. You already know deep down what you want to create. So let your journey be yours. Share when you feel inspired to, but do so from a place of abundance, not need, and recognize that the quiet confidence that comes from within will always be more enduring than any external validation. In that space of self-trust, you find the most profound kind of connection, not only with yourself, but with life itself. And as you continue on this journey, remember that true fulfillment isn't found in others' reactions. It's found in living authentically, in harmony with your own heart. If we think about life as a continuous conversation, one that spans all of existence, we realize that often we're more interested in sharing our story than truly living it. The constant urge to be heard, to make our mark on the world, or to be seen by others can lead us to overspeak, over-explain, and share our lives too openly. But what if the greatest way to live is to stop trying so hard to be noticed and simply let life unfold? When we stop oversharing, we open up the space for something deeper to emerge, the quiet, unspoken truth of who we are. It's not about hiding or retreating from the world. It's about choosing the moments where sharing is authentic and meaningful. When we hold back the constant flow of words, we leave room for something far more profound, the experience of simply being. Take a moment to think about this. Every time we share something personal with someone, it's like we're handing them a piece of ourselves. But if we give too many pieces away too frequently, we risk losing the fullness of our own experience. We allow others to hold fragments of us that in truth belong only to us. There's a beauty in keeping some parts of ourselves sacred, in letting them remain untouched by the opinions or judgments of others. By doing this, we retain a sense of sovereignty over our own story. This isn't to say we shouldn't engage in deep, authentic connections with others. We're social creatures, after all, and part of being human is sharing in the joys and sorrows of the world around us. But the key is discernment. What do you really need to share, and with whom? Are you sharing for validation, for attention, or because it's truly coming from a place of growth and self-expression? When we understand our motivations, we can choose when and how to reveal parts of ourselves. By guarding certain aspects of our lives, we maintain our internal landscape as a sanctuary, a space where only we can truly understand and process our thoughts and emotions. The more we share indiscriminately, the more we allow others to shape our perception of ourselves, subtly or overtly. And this, over time, can create confusion and dilute the sense of clarity we need to navigate life authentically. There's another aspect to this as well. In keeping our personal lives to ourselves, we also cultivate trust. Not just trust in others, but trust in ourselves. We begin to realize that we are strong enough to handle our own emotions, challenges, and decisions. We stop seeking approval or sympathy and start trusting that we have everything we need within us. This self-reliance nurtures a quiet confidence that cannot be shaken by the fleeting opinions of others. Moreover, withholding personal information allows us to engage in relationships in a way that is free from expectations. When we give without feeling the need to receive something in return, be it sympathy, advice, or validation, we open the door to relationships that are pure, free, and untainted by ulterior motives. This is where the real magic happens, where authentic connection flourishes not out of obligation, but out of genuine love and mutual respect. So take a step back and ask yourself, what are you sharing and why? Ask yourself whether the impulse to reveal is coming from a place of need or from a place of genuine connection and growth. And if it's the former, remember you are already whole, and you do not need anyone else to complete you. You are enough, just as you are. In the end, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the ability to keep certain parts of your life sacred, to hold them with the reverence they deserve. And in doing so, you create space for a deeper, more meaningful connection with the world around you, unburdened by the need to constantly prove, explain, or seek validation. Trust that the moments you choose to share will be the most meaningful, and that the quiet strength of keeping some things to yourself will always be your truest power.